Apparently, nostalgia is now Microsoft's emergency generator, because creating a confident future would require stable leadership, trusted developers, and one meeting without the phrase, leveraging iconic intellectual property. First, Halo Campaign Evolved arrived carrying 25 years of history, a famous green helmet, and enough corporate expectation to bend a Warthog axle. Second, professional critics mostly saluted the remake while users reached for the review score flamethrower. Third, workers across Xbox studios marched, filed legal complaints, and publicly accused giant publishers of being dreadful stewards. Together, those stories form one miserable picture. Part of the audience is rebelling outside Microsoft while developers are rebelling inside it. Somewhere, an executive presentation probably called this a historic celebration of Halo's legacy. Naturally, the celebration included no competitive multiplayer, compulsory account registration, premium trouble, performance complaints, and thousands of cuts across the Xbox empire. Campaign Evolved rebuilds the original campaign with modern visuals, revised cinematics, refined controls, 3 additional missions, console split screen, 4-player online cooperation, cross-play, and shared progression. Mechanically, plenty still works because the original Combat Evolved foundation remains sturdier than most live service roadmaps written on scented stationery. Emotionally, however, this remake asks people to purchase an old memory while ignoring Microsoft's long record of resets, reorganizations, abandoned plans, and promises that the next beginning will definitely be the final beginning. Critics judged the product placed before them. Players judged the corporation standing behind it. That difference explains the backlash better than the convenient fairy tale about toxic gamers randomly attacking an innocent multinational company. Controversially, Campaign Evolved was branded review bombed after an 80 critic score collided with a 5.9 user score. Importantly, those figures demonstrate polarization and mistrust, not proof that every negative score came from an organized review bombing campaign. Meanwhile, Steam logged an all-time peak of 25,376 concurrent players on July 29. Obviously, Steam excludes Xbox consoles, Game Pass, Microsoft Store buyers, and PlayStation users. Still, Halo should not require a defense barrister carrying platform charts, subscription caveats, regional engagement data, and 3 calculators immediately after launch. Now, before YouTube's algorithm decides this discussion lacks sufficient ritual begging, like the video, subscribe, and support the channel. Otherwise, our digital landlord will bury it beneath fake leaks, open-mouthed thumbnails, and a live stream called Halo is saved from someone who watched the opening cinematic twice. Consider your click a tiny protest against executives demanding endless engagement, while firing the people who create everything worth engaging with. Right? Humiliation completed. Back on the ring, the first major problem is competitive multiplayer. Technically, the title says Campaign Evolved, allowing Microsoft to point at the label and escape through a legal ventilation shaft. Historically, though, Halo was never merely a chain of campaign corridors. Multiplayer, split-screen grudges, LAN parties, rocket betrayals, and accusations of screen-watching formed half the franchise's identity. Removing that legacy produces something accurate to the title, but incomplete to the memory. Next comes compulsory Microsoft account registration, because humanity apparently cannot defeat the Covenant until Redmond verifies an email address. Official store information confirms that Microsoft account registration and acceptance of its service and privacy terms are required to play. Imagine purchasing a remake of a single-player classic and discovering that the opening boss is a forgotten password. However, blocking first-time access behind that system turns convenience into a corporate toll booth. Nobody bought Halo to experience the thrilling return of two-factor authentication. Customers wanted to shoot grunts. Corporate strategy wanted another ecosystem user. Afterward, Premium Early Access produced its own little comedy sketch. Early Steam buyers reported that launching the game opened the digital art book instead of the campaign. Fortunately, Halo's team deployed a fix quickly, with a client restart resolving the issue after reports surfaced. Yet customers who paid extra briefly received a very attractive coffee table application while Master Chief remained imprisoned behind it. Server problems also disrupted account linking, leaving some players unable to enter a single-player campaign because an authentication service was having a difficult afternoon. Performance complaints mentioned crashes, graphical shimmering, forced upscaling, frame time spikes, and stuttering. Fairly, Halo Studios said the login problem had been fixed and passed performance feedback to the development team. Regardless, the first impression followed the sacred modern launch ritual. Buy early, authenticate twice, troubleshoot immediately, and wait for adults to arrive with patches. Remarkably, this was Halo's first PlayStation release, yet Sony players greeted Master Chief like a distant cousin arriving without beer, enthusiasm, or warning. Circana's July American engagement snapshot instead placed campaign evolved 4th on Xbox, 14th on Steam, and 29th on PlayStation. Specifically, around 8% of active Xbox players launched it that day, compared with 2% on Steam and 1% on PlayStation. Crucially, that is a single daily engagement snapshot, not worldwide sales data or evidence of a permanent PlayStation rejection. Nevertheless, Microsoft's supposedly historic border crossing produced a polite cough, rather than a stampede. Sony users looked at Master Chief, nodded once, and returned to whichever enormous game was already consuming their storage. According to Steam DB data, the remake remains mixed at about 63% positive, with more than 10,000 indexed reviews. Even so, this is Halo, not a tactical farming simulator developed by 6 exhausted people above a bakery. Pricing sharpens every complaint because the standard edition costs roughly $50, while premium costs around $70 and included 5 days of early access. Paying modern money creates modern expectations, reliable access, solid performance, clear value, and fewer administrative hoops than a government tax portal. Worse, reviewers and users also criticized changes to tone, character presentation, cinematic pacing, and some of the 3 new missions. Those reactions remain subjective, but they matter because classic Halo earned affection through restraint, military atmosphere, and characters who rarely sounded like rejected streaming comedy applicants. Veterans remember Halo Infinite's missing launch features, long recovery, studio restructuring, and repeated promises about a fresh direction. Every new beginning now resembles a landlord repainting the same cracked wall before raising the rent. Reportedly, Halo Studios also cancelled multiplayer-focused Project Icar, formerly Tatanka, leaving the franchise without a clearly visible roadmap beyond recycled history. Beyond Halo, the developer revolt makes the story far uglier. Andrew Willis, a laid-off id Software producer who helped lead unionization, publicly argued that developer-owned studios might be gaming's only sustainable future path. Willis called major publishers and monopolies terrible stewards and even worse financial managers. Public criticism from a recently laid-off producer at one of Microsoft's respected shooter studios is not ordinary forum grumbling. Game developer also interviewed workers across Bethesda, ZeniMax Online, and id who described the layoffs as cruel, chaotic, and self-defeating. Employees reportedly learned their fate through fleeting video calls where chat was disabled, microphones were muted, and questions were impossible. Inside id Software, one layoff meeting allegedly lasted less than 60 seconds. Invitations sometimes arrived about 10 minutes beforehand, while internal email and Slack access disappeared soon afterward. Absurdly, affected workers seeking answers were reportedly directed toward an internal address that some could no longer access. Nothing communicates dignity like firing somebody in under a minute and locking the instructions inside the building. Officially, Xbox announced approximately 3,200 role eliminations throughout fiscal year 2027, including about 1,600 immediate cuts. Management said the business was unhealthy, margins lagged comparable companies, and earlier bets had not grown fast enough. Corporations prefer the word reset because expanded badly, missed our targets, and workers will absorb the correction. Looks dreadful beneath an inspirational logo. Repeatedly, Xbox has followed the same ritual, with July marking its 5th major round of mass layoffs since 2023. Filings connected 136 eliminated positions to id Software's Texas operation. Workers warned that losing experienced staff would damage production knowledge, tools, technical support, and future projects. Microsoft disputed the bleakest descriptions and maintained that teams remained across several locations. Such context matters, although retaining some engineers does not transform a talent purge into a wellness retreat. One BGS union members answered with Save Our Devs rallies outside ZeniMax locations, Obsidian, and Microsoft's Redmond campus. Organizers said more than 440 positions were being cut across Bethesda Game Studios, ZeniMax Online id, Quality Assurance, and Corporate Operations. Their demands included preferential transfers, stronger severance, extended health care, and recall rights when hiring resumed. CWA and CWA Canada then filed labor complaints accusing Microsoft of failing to bargain properly before eliminating union jobs. Legally, those accusations remain allegations rather than final judgments. Practically, workers marched, organized, filed complaints, and accused management of damaging both livelihoods and games. Ironically, Campaign Evolved itself contains genuine strengths. Enemy artificial intelligence still creates lively firefights, cooperative play remains entertaining, Weapons feel responsive, and the flood still ruins every pleasant military expedition. Credit belongs to developers who clearly cared about rebuilding the campaign. Sadly, their craftsmanship sits inside a product shaped by decisions that make the surrounding corporation difficult to trust. Unreal Engine 5 supplies detail, but detail is not identity. Faces sometimes drift toward the uncanny, realistic lighting can flatten the old atmosphere, and frame rate problems interrupt spectacle. Vehicle handling remains capable of turning the Warthog into a supermarket trolley possessed by an angry demon. Modders also activated unfinished split-screen code on Steam, proving that some version of the feature existed despite being officially disabled on PC. Caveats matter because the modification supports only 2 players, requires controllers, and does not prove a polished feature was ready to ship. Few things summarize modern publishing better than customers excavating dormant functionality after buying a product that briefly launched an art book instead. Ultimately, Campaign Evolved is not terrible because Combat Evolved suddenly stopped being brilliant. Original combat remains readable, enemies remain memorable, and Master Chief remains one of gaming's cleanest heroic figures. Fundamentally, the remake fails to prove that Microsoft understands why Halo mattered beyond owning the trademark. Ownership grants the legal right to sell the helmet. Stewardship requires stable teams, creative confidence, coherent leadership, technical care, and patience beyond the next financial quarter. None of that changes the central image. Finally, players hammered Halo's reviews while organized Xbox workers openly rebelled against Microsoft's management. Staff say legendary studios cannot survive endless cuts, while fans say legendary franchises cannot survive endless recycling. Both groups identify the same villain: a machine buying famous names, promising rebirth, removing people, selling memories, and blaming audiences when excitement fails. Massive budgets can reproduce armor scratches, orchestral themes, alien landscapes, and familiar dialogue. By the credits, Campaign Evolved resembles a company reopening the family album, removing several relatives, demanding a login, and charging $50 to remember happier times. Damningly, Microsoft knows exactly how valuable Halo was and still seems uncertain about what made it valuable. Anyway, that is enough corporate archaeology for today. Take your drink, protect your password, and leave before another beloved franchise receives an exciting corporate strategic reset.